That was a life-changing event for me, which basically brought out this urge to help people. That was when I lost my mother to cancer.
You have to wait until something super tragic happens for you to feel like it isn't about me, it's about the whole.
Can we make money and how can we give back? I can't even imagine the amount of people out there that have some great business ideas, some great sort of brands waiting to start that don't do it, but just because of the pressures of, trying to be the best. Something that has helped me, if I had to give a sort of my secret here is...
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Setting the Pace. I'm so excited for this 5th episode. To be honest, I'm always excited when I have the opportunity to sit in this chair and just speak to people that really, really inspire me. And it's interesting because when I first started this podcast, I had the intention that it was going to be mostly sports-based. So me interviewing people that have achieved something in sports or learned through sports, or it was always going to be sports-related. But the truth is that sometimes you meet people and they tell you their story and it leaves you a bit better than when it found you. And this is what happened with my next guest. So while sports will always be and is an essential part of my life, I want setting the pace to be a bit more fluid because I guess that's what life is, right? You kind of have a plan and things change. And for this case, for the better. So for the next few episodes, I'm going to be talking to people that aren't only finding their anchor in life through sports, but also through business or any kind of personal story that has helped them to set the pace in other areas of their life and really take charge of their own narrative for the better. And so I recently asked one of my very good friends to suggest, or if they had a recommendation of someone that would really be inspiring and also someone that I could learn from and other people could learn from. And this one name kept coming up, and it's Magri. You might be thinking, who is Mark? Mark is a 27-year-old marketing guru that helps brands tell their best stories, but with a bit of a twist. So Mark always tries to find a way to give back, whether he's starting a company with his friends like Waggo's, which aims to bring dog lovers together by fostering connections between brands, dogs, and their owners, or whether he's part of a foundation like Jays of Sunshine, which is a charity that focuses on helping children who are in the rainbow ward or are sick to have one of their dreams or many of their dreams come true. So it's not every day that you meet someone that manages to balance out work, giving back, and everything in between. And so for this reason, I am so excited for this podcast. Before we jump in, there's one small thing I'd like to ask you for. It will literally take you 10 seconds and will really, really help this podcast. If you could just like and follow the podcast wherever you're listening. So if it's Spotify, please follow the page and give it a rating, even if it's a 1-star rating. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like the YouTube channel, follow the YouTube channel, and possibly comment any points that really resonated with you. This really, really helps, and I'm eternally grateful. Okay, let's jump right in. Hi, I'm Maria, and welcome to Setting the Pace. This podcast was born out of the curiosity to understand the mindset behind the outcomes we spend years chasing, be it in sports, business, relationships, and everything in between. I want to learn more about the person you become and achieving anything that's worth your time, and how you can set the pace to get exactly there. Let's get started. I'm so excited to introduce Mark. Hey Mark, welcome to Setting the Pace.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited that you said yes and being open-minded to the questions and also just sharing everything that you've been through and learned, and it's fantastic. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, excited.
Okay,
It's
cool.
going to be fun being on this side of the screen.
I think podcasts have become so part of my daily life all the time that it's interesting to be on the other side of it. So
For sure.
I hope you enjoy it. There are many questions that I want to ask you, as you can imagine. But one of them that really got me thinking and that I kept on pondering after we met the first time was how whether you're starting a business with your friends in Waggos or joining Jays of Sunshine and helping that foundation or even within your own marketing work, you always find a way, like this common thread, to give back. And so my question to you is, was that something that you always felt inside you from a very young age? Or was that a symptom of things that happened in your life so far? And it can be a bit of both, but I'm just curious to understand kind of where that is coming from.
Okay. So I would say that there is a side of me that always sort of found comfort or felt joy in trying to help people. I always felt that there is this sort of inner urge to try and help people. However, yes, there is an event that was a life-changing event for me, which basically brought out this urge to help people. And that was when I lost my mother to cancer. So this event was obviously a life-changing event for me. It really changed the way I sort of look at life, the way I tackle life on a daily. So just to give you a bit of background, I was always a mommy's boy. Okay, so I'd always sort of go to mommy when I needed things when I was younger, whether it was trying to convince my father for certain things, if I had failed an exam. So it's funny because now when I look at it, the more time that passes, the more I sort of relate and sort of think, okay, I say to myself, that's why she sort of thought this way, or that's why she acted this way for certain things. You know, I often find myself in situations where if I'm given a sort of situation and I need to come up with an answer, I'd sort of I find myself speaking to my mother sort of thing and asking her the question just to see what she would reply, you know, how she would tackle it. And often, more than not, it's sort of the right decision, you know. So that's really comforting for me. So again, just to sort of answer your question, yes, I always did feel that there was a side of me that that felt comforting giving back, and this event sort of really was really this sort of game changer, brought it out, you know, in me.
Wow. Okay. Thanks so much for sharing that. I know it's not easy. It's something that I can relate to, but I'm sure there are people that can. But I think what's most beautiful of that story is that you've somehow mustered up the strength to turn probably one of the worst negatives into a positive. And you said that something that really helped you is a song called Let It Be by Paul McCartney.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to let us know why that song.
Of course. So look, I mean, a situation like this gets you questioning, you know. It's obvious, like, why me? Why my family? Sort of, why my mother? It's normal to question, you know, when you go through an event like that can change your life. It's the important thing is sort of how you deal with it, I guess. You know, my at least recent experience with Jays of Sunshine gets you to realize that, listen, everyone has the sort of troubles. It's a normal thing, you know. I've been put into situations at events where you see families going through a lot, you know, children with cancer themselves. Some make it, some sadly don't, you know. That's the reality. So the reality is that everyone has their struggles, you know. Life isn't perfect. This is let's say the bad side of life. It can be seen as a bad side of life. Now, going into Paul McCartney's Let It Be. So this was something that really sort of stuck with me. Basically, his story to how he came up with the song Let It Be was that he was going through a difficult period in life himself. And his mother appeared to him in a dream where she basically just sort of told him, let it be. And this is something I really relate to myself, you know, where you are going to have tough days, where you're going through a lot, where you're feeling stressed, where you're feeling like you don't know how you're going to tackle what's coming ahead of you. And if you just sort of tell yourself, you know, let it be, you always end up getting through it.
Wow, I'm gonna think of that next time I'm in one of those situations. And that really gets me thinking about how, you're always taking this approach. And what's interesting to me is that, uh, again, I'm still trying to figure this out myself, and I think a lot of people are, but it's how do you put yourself in those situations and then they say, okay, I'm going to get myself out of it. And it can be anything. And you said, and it's something that, again, stuck with me, that your life is a mess. But although you feel that your life is a mess, and I can tell you it's not, but I know that we are always our harshest critics, is that you're excited for the mess to come. So can you explain what this mess is and what excites you? Like when you get out of bed in the morning, you're like, let's get it.
Sure. So, again, my life's a mess. Let's say it's a good mess. Okay, if there's such a thing as a good mess. But basically, look, I sort of crave change. I'm an individual that sort of craves change. Change is good. Change is healthy. This is the way I look at change. Change is growth. I drive my partner crazy. She's always sort of complaining that you're never settled, you're never happy, just because I'm always trying to chase something else. You know what I mean? It's just different characters. She's someone that maybe needs some more convincing for change, but I feel that I've sort of started to crave this change after this sort of life-changing event that I've had. What I mean by that is that, listen, an event like this really does get you thinking that you can be here one day and not the next, So I really started to sort of tackle life as if there's an exciting opportunity in front of you. Go for it. There's a saying of Richard Branson that I really like and relate to also, which is basically that if someone, it goes something along the lines of someone sort of presents a great opportunity ahead of you, say yes, and then you'll learn and make sure you learn sort of how to deal with it and how to tackle it. So taking on sort of these new opportunities, trying to jump into exciting things and all is what I sort of mean by mess,
Okay.
Again, obviously life always throws curveballs your way. Again, I've been through other situations where the family members have unfortunately suffer from some sort of sickness. So there's always something that's going to sort of stop you, or rather than stop you, a hurdle, along the way. And this is what I mean, that when you think you're on track to where you're going,
Life reminds you.
There's a slap in the face to remind you that, listen, stay sort of put, don't take things for granted. There are going to be hurdles along the way. But this is what I mean, that my life, at least I call it a mess. It's a good mess. It's a mess of growth, like I said, and growth is good. Change is good. So that's what I mean by I'm excited for the mess to come, because it's inevitable that the mess will continue. It's inevitable that life will keep on throwing curveballs your way. So that's it.
Okay, nice. So this reminds me also about something that I learned through sports. So I know that the podcast now is kind of shifting away, or will not always be about sports. But I think it also is something that you learn within sports. Like you could have the best training, you could be at your optimum, whatever, peak performance. And then maybe on the day, if you're maybe a cyclist, something goes wrong with your bike, or you dive into the pool and your goggles come halfway across your face, or whatever it is. And that's been I think, really good lessons for me. And I think that's also something that you can relate to. So although you're not, let's say, an athlete, sports has always been part of your life.
For sure. So, for as long as I can remember, sports has always been a sort of main pillar of my childhood and growth. I was always a sort of sporty kid.
Okay.
At school, I was, again, bang average when it comes to studying. Again, I sort of, let's say, had a bit of a gift when it comes to sports, again, but I'd always sort of rely on my natural talent to a certain extent, and not push as much as I should push. That is always the sort of feedback from the coaches and all. So, again, the importance of sports. I look nowadays, like I said, as far as I can remember, sports has always been part of my life. I really see sports or some sort of fitness as crucial in everyday life. A lot of my friends today, a lot of my best friends that I remained with were all with me throughout the process of sports. I made a lot of friends through sports. And, yeah, so basically, that's my journey in sports. I played water polo as a football and water polo as a child.
Okay.
Went on to choosing sort of water polo and pushed on that, which again teaches you a lot of things, a lot of discipline. Again, that's
It's always been a constant in your life that now you just continue to like tap into.
That's it. I mean, let me tell you, this in general, just whatever I do, and I say, listen, I don't have time for sports. That week I say I don't have time for sports is probably my worst week, just because.
And when you need it the most.
And when I need it the most, that's exactly it. And you realize that after you do it, you know what I mean? So I just find it so important to include it in my daily life sort of thing.
And when you talk about being average, I can relate to that. I don't think I've ever been the best at anything I've ever done, but I've always just stuck it out. Mm-hmm. But also, as the older I get, the more I realize the power in being average, that maybe being average is what keeps you in the game long enough to see those rewards. Mm-hmm. And you said that you were always bang average, whether it's in sports or school. Like, it's like you always knew how to get by, right? And maybe looking back, you could say I could have tried a bit harder or whatever. Yeah. But going off that, kind of the power of being average, how do you think being average has helped you when it comes to let's say, the business side of your life?
Sure. Okay, so I think that's actually a really good point, because in today's world, there's a lot of pressure, to sort of try be the best, or if you're not the best, don't do it, sort of thing.
Yeah, have 55 hustles.
That's exactly it, I can't even imagine the amount of people out there that have some great business ideas, some great sort of brands waiting to start, that don't do it, or don't try that new sport, for example, just because of the pressures of, trying to be the best,
So true.
Where I think a really important point to bring out here is that you need to embrace sort of being average,
Yes.
It's impossible for everyone to be the best.
Yes.
But I think a really good message to bring out here is that aim to be the best version of yourself. This is something I always try to tell myself. Again, like I said, I was bang average at school, bang average at sports. But I found I found happiness in what I do, and that's where the sort of passion comes out. That's where I feel I'm improving for myself, improving as a person. So like I said, being the best person of yourself is
what counts.
What counts. That's exactly it.
Okay, but for anyone listening to this, or even if you had to speak to your younger self, when you're actually going through it, and maybe you don't have time to just go try and figure it out, like maybe you're a freelancer or you're kind of being tested on whatever it is, whether it's a sport or whether it's business, you don't have time to just kind of be average, like you need to be at your peak or the best. What are things that maybe you would either say to someone in a position, or that you have done yourself when you'd have to basically your back's against the wall and you do have to be the best in that situation?
Okay. Again, I'm really stress on the bit of, you have to sort of believe in yourself. It's much easier said than done. It's not like everyone has full belief in themselves. Unfortunately, it gets even harder to believe in yourself sometimes. But something that has helped me, if I had to give a sort of my secret here, is that listen to your gut.
Okay.
And this has been something that I always sort of try follow myself, the sort of gut feeling. You do, let me tell you, in life, I'm not saying, listen, everything is gonna, things don't come easy. It's as simple as that, you're gonna have to work hard to sort of get it. But as long as you find and love what you do, I think that's the secret. Now, it's not easy. Not everyone, unfortunately, has found themselves in a situation where they've had the opportunities to find perhaps what they love to do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it's once you do find what you love to do, that's when sort of the passion comes out. That's when hard work becomes easier to a certain extent, just because you don't see it as a chore. You see it as something that you're enjoying to do.
And that you get to do.
And that you get to do, lucky enough to get to do. Mm-hmm. So sort of my advice here, if I had to sort of give advice, which sounds silly.
No, please do.
is, like I said, spend time really finding out what it is that you want to do, what it is that you're happy in doing. And once you do find that and you do give it time, you do give it your love,
You'd be
then
surprised.
that's it. You'd be surprised of what you can do.
Yeah. So I think something I'm learning about you is that you're really good at things happening to you. And you're like, okay, this is not what was planned. But I'm in the situation now. I'm either going to sink or swim. So I think there's something really to be said that you don't fall into this like victim mentality or narrative, like, why is it happening to me? Or like you said, like what happened with your mom or people in your family. But this also, I think, happened again. So you studied abroad for your master's, right, in digital marketing.
Correct.
In Dublin, if I remember correctly. And you were not promised, but the whole point was that after your master's, you would get to work with like a big company, which are quite notorious in Dublin. And so you are in Dublin, you're about to finish your master's, and COVID hits.
Yep.
And you have to come back to Malta. So goodbye working at the Facebooks and ASOS's and other big companies set up in Dublin, and you're back on our tiny little rock. How did you manage to flip that narrative? And I feel like also a lot of people probably your age had to deal with that. Like they thought they were going to start maybe university or their career, and then kind of COVID was like,
For sure.
no bueno.
For sure. So yes, in fact, let me tell you, there's always a side of it where look at the positive side of things, and that's the way I try to look at it, sort of thing. Where yes, when I was applying for this master's, and I'm sort of seeing that there are going to be guest speakers from some of the biggest companies in the world, that's what excited me most. When I was hearing that, listen, you have a big chance of being recruited into these companies. That was obviously extremely exciting for me, It's always a dream to sort of work at one of these big, like you said, the Googles, the Facebooks, and all. So when COVID did hit and sort of those opportunities were thrown out of the door, it was quite a shock. You know what I mean? Quite a shock. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Where do I leave off here? But if I had to look back, there was so much more I gained from the overall general experience of the masters where I learned so much. If I look back at it, perhaps it was for a reason, that I didn't end up at one of those companies, sort of thing. I look back as a positive note and sort of say the whole experience of the masters is what I learned and what was my sort of growth. And it led me to more opportunities here locally. When at that point in time, you sort of feel like, I just wasted a year, how am I going to get a job now?
So that's how you felt?
It was a real uncertain period, because if these companies aren't employing, then who on earth is employing? I've just sort of spent a whole year.
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but I could have just imagined you like...
Of course. I mean, it was an uncertain period for everyone, eh?
Yes.
You know what I mean? People were being let off their jobs. People weren't finding jobs. I was lucky enough to sort of complete the master's, so at least I got that. But more opportunities came out of it. You know what I mean? So following that experience, I ended up finding a job here in Malta where I went into an agency and sort of opened up the digital marketing department. And that's what gave me the physical hands-on experience, that perhaps I wouldn't have got at the Googles or Facebook. You know what I mean?
Because you would have been one of 1,000.
That's it. Where when I was pre-masters, it was my dream. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure it's absolutely great, to work at one of these companies. But I'm 99% sure that I wouldn't have gained the hands-on experience in the same amount of time than I did where I ended up. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I look at that as a sort of positive now, looking back at it,
Okay, so going back a bit, so after you finish your master's, COVID breaks out, you need to come to Malta. Was there a period where you kind of felt a bit sorry for yourself, or were you like, there's no time, I need to, because you haven't even started your career and the world's already like, take a seat, and you're like, I can't.
Of course.
So was there a period where you stopped and you're like, okay, I'm just going to mull in this situation I'm in? Or were you more motivated to get up and figure it out?
Let me tell you, it's me, I'm speaking now of me as an individual, sort of thing. I'm the sort of person that doesn't really dwell on these sort of things. Yes, definitely it was a period of uncertainty. Like I said, I might have, if I didn't find a job, what on earth was I gonna do? Sort of thing. But I took it as, listen, let's see what comes out of it. I was finishing my thesis at that point in time, so I had even time to think, time to actually see what I want to do, what I love to do. And again, I found this opportunity where sometimes, when you do look at how unlucky I was that I didn't have that opportunity to go into one of these companies, to me, now looking back at it, a better opportunity came, sort of thing. That's the way I look at it.
So trusting the process, and I think it comes back to what you're saying about self-belief. Like, you had to put in the hard work, you got your master's, and you did very well, you got a distinction. So from being the average kid, you were probably like, okay, maybe I am average, but I do have the potential, and that's given you the confidence to take that next step.
I think that's it. The experience of the masters in general really gave me that point of view where, we live in Malta. Malta's tiny. You sort of have this view on the world where the world is huge. Even if I have a brand, how on earth am I going to sort of compete with any company out there? There's no chance. That's what, unfortunately, sort of automatically start to believe, just because of the sort of bubble we live in to a certain extent. But what it did teach me was that at the end of the day, I was put into a situation, to a master's, where I'm with people, that some are chief position at companies, some are
C-suite guys coming in.
That's it, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and I'm a 20-year-old, that just got into the masters, and we're put into a group together to sort of tackle a situation, work on projects together. So the fact that I completed that master's and actually sort of felt that because it was doing what I love to do and that I was good at it, I felt that, listen, I belong here, I have a position in this sort of world where even if you live in the US, if you live in wherever, in the UK, a sort of guy from Malta can do what you can do, and, you can do it better, sort of thing. Because, again, I found what I love. I was good at what I do. So it really gave me that confidence, coming down. Maybe that's, going back to the question that you asked, maybe that was a big reason to why I didn't really, let's say, dwell or worry of, listen, what's coming next, because I did feel that, listen, what I have here and what I am doing, I'm sort of good enough to do. I had that self-belief. It gave me that self-belief.
Exactly. And I think as well, there's also something to be said about being a bit naive. So going into the masters, maybe because you kind of had nothing to lose and everything to learn and everything to gain, you probably had that energy. Whereas maybe if you've had that experience and you were 30, 40, as I'm 30, but I look at people that are 10 years younger than me, and I can already see where I still take risks and do stuff and whatever, that being naive sometimes is a really powerful thing because you don't know what's coming. And so you go in it full force. Your risk appetite is so much bigger when you're younger. So I think maybe that also gave you that energy.
It's definitely a big point, but I think a real point I sort of want to bring out here is that getting out of your comfort zone, because you mentioned age, and this is why I'm mentioning it, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are of a particular age where perhaps they always had that dream of doing something else and might use age as a sort of excuse. Don't get me wrong, as an
inhibitor, basically.
That's it. Where basically, when you sort of realize that you do, and again, I'm saying this just from an experience where perhaps I've been through certain situations that, like I said, are a slap in the face and make you realize that today you're here, tomorrow
you're not.
You're not. So trying to even find some time on the side to maybe doing what you love to do, which might push you into a sort of other direction. You know what I mean? Being open to opportunities. Can you imagine all the sort of, with everything that goes around us on a daily basis? What my experience has taught me was to sort of live life with your eyes open. What do I mean by that? Okay, you're not walking around like it. But basically, we walk around, a lot of people,
on our phones, probably looking down.
Myself included, a lot of the time, walk around like a zombie sort of thing. Your eyes are open, but you're not actually open to what's happening around you, sort of thing, because exactly, you're not present. And I think living life with your sort of eyes open, what I mean by this is that be open to any opportunity that there might be outside there, Waggos is a sort of case in point here, where I was open to new opportunities, For all you know, if I was just said I'm happy where I am, let's stay in safety zone sort of thing, I might have not had the opportunity there ahead of me. I might have not have gone for it. And look how many other opportunities there are, sort of thing. My biggest fear is regret.
So the opposite of that
regret,
is go for it.
You know what I mean? And that's at least what you're saying, go for it, is my way of tackling not having regret, because at least if I tackle it and it didn't work out, maybe there's less regret there, sort of thing. But
so switching things over to the more business side of things, I was listening to something that Simon Sinek said a couple of weeks ago. And he said that one of the greatest paradoxes of being human is that we're both an individual, but also part of society. And which comes first? Are you part of society and then you can give back as an individual? Or are you an individual and then because you look after yourself, you can give back to society? Now, there's no right answer, because if I probably have this conversation with a friend A, they're going to tell me, of course, fill your cup, like we hear all over social media, and then you can help others. And then if I speak to someone else, they're like, no, you're part of society, you contribute, and that makes you a better person as a consequence. So again, there's no right or wrong answer here. But what this is bringing me to is you've tried to incorporate this in a business that you started with your friends, which is called Waggos. So can you tell us what Waggos is and what Waggos aims to achieve?
Of course. So Waggos is a dog brand, okay? What I mean by a dog brand is a very generic term. The reason why it is a generic term at this point in time is because we're three individuals, okay, with a sort of skill set and with a passion for dogs also, trying to sort of see how we can create a brand that really does make a difference in the space, okay? I think this is so important that creating a brand needs to have a purpose,
Yes.
And this is what we're figuring out here. So at this point in time, Waggos is an online community of dog owners and lovers, and we're doing this through entertaining content, educational content on our platforms, and also a lot of giving back.
Okay.
So since we did start Waggos, we obviously have the sort of ambition to make Waggos into a sort of big brand, a business. And as we did start giving back, ended up being a really big part of what we're doing, It was the first time we visited a shelter was all together sort of thing, and we started a dog brand. And that was a really realization point for us of the
Humbled you.
satisfaction, exactly, the satisfaction we sort of got in doing this, where suddenly a lot more of our content was around giving back more than anything else, to a certain extent. In fact, I get people coming up to me of thinking we're a sort of NGO, to a certain extent, which isn't a bad thing at all,
And it wasn't the intention.
It wasn't the intention, and it's perhaps not the intention to solely just be an organization that sort of gives back, but it's a big part in what we want to do.
Okay.
Now, because we're on this point, I think it's really good to mention, because the conversation has come up internally, like with my partners so many times, even with clients, of listen, we're a sort of business, we're not an NGO. So I think this is a really interesting point, because here the balance between, okay, how can we make money and how can we give back? This is always a sort of question mark. It's not easy. I mean,
There probably isn't a right answer.
there probably isn't a right answer. That's exactly it. However, if I had to sort of give my,
2 cents.
let's say 2 cents on it, my secret sort of thing to a certain extent, it's the way you can integrate your sort of financial plan
Okay.
with your values.
Okay.
Okay, financial plan? I mean, what you want in terms of your life financially and what your values are.
Okay.
So just if you're a business person, okay, and you're looking to sort of start a brand, or you already do sort of run a company and all, you know what a business plan is, okay? Now, if you're able to sort of, within your business plan, include and integrate your values, to me, you have the winning recipe. Why? Because you end up creating a business that is something you would want to do, is something you'd love to do. It's your business. But at the same time, it also includes your values. So if one of your values is to give back, and you're able to include this as part of your sort of vision and purpose of your brand,
Win-win.
then it's a win-win sort of situation. You know what I mean? Which sounds complicated, but if you manage to just include, two sort of simple things, what your great idea is, why you're creating a brand in the first place, and what are your values as an individual. Now, the beauty of this is that you end up loving what you do even more, and you sort of attract people that have the same purpose, that have the same vision into your company, that want to go down the same route, So you end up with just a better product, a better business, a better life at the end of it all,
So how do you find the balance between basically keeping it a business that has to keep going, has expenses, you need to get wages from there, you have clients that you need to make happy and obviously fulfill those deliverables, and as well as giving back? How do you, or what has been something that you really had to learn the hard way?
So I'd say we've found ourselves in a situation where there is a big community out there of both individuals as well as companies, brands that do want to give back to this community of the animal, community,
Welfare,
where it's shelters, whatever it is, So we suddenly found ourselves as sort of bridging the gap in allowing these companies, these individuals to sort of help in giving back to shelters, to sanctuaries. How? Like you said, so something that these sanctuaries do struggle with, okay, besides the donations, which we try to help as much as possible, is also nowadays content, you know? Unless you're creating the content, unless you're hitting people's eyes on the phone, people don't know about you. Now, if these shelters are struggling with getting dogs adopted or cats adopted, how are they going to sort of get out there, get their message out there? How are they going to sort of get their purpose as a shelter out there? Who they are, who are the people behind it, who are the volunteers? Because there are some great people, in these organizations. So we suddenly found a way of, listen, we can be the voice for these shelters, but at the same time also raise awareness and try get these businesses and individuals on the other side of things to sort of give back to this community. Let's sort of give a voice to this community. Let's make people aware that, people love pets. There are over 180,000 households, you know what I mean, with pets. Malta are pet lovers, you know what I mean. So we really saw it as which we're seeing now, as sort of, there's a big community. There are people that do want to help. They don't know where to help. They don't know where to start from. And now we're sort of being seen as, okay, how could, besides giving back, they're also creating content out of it. We're also, so that's where we currently stand. Now, where Waggos is going as a brand is that our purpose is to really create something that is bettering the life for dogs and their owners, okay? So with whatever we're going to be launching, besides the content side of it, we're also going to be launching physical products to the market, be it actual physical or tech products, but all with a purpose to make life for dogs and their owners better. It's as simple as that sort of thing. And this is what keeps us on track to being a cool, different brand, something that people can speak about, something that whenever something is out, it's new, it's different, gets
and
people
to be proud
talking.
Of.
That's the plan.
I think what's really interesting is that it's like if it was a triangle where you've got obviously Waggos, clients, sanctuaries, everyone is benefiting, but in a really positive way, which I think very few, in what I've read or whatever, have managed. So obviously if you are the dog brand that comes to you and they ask you for content, then you're kind of telling them, okay, we're going to create this content and then we're going to give back in this way.
Yeah.
So without even wanting to, the clients are in this pipeline of giving back.
It's like you said, a triangle where it's a sort of win-win situation for all, and that's the best situation to be in.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, my parents have dogs. I have a very interesting cat that anyone who knows me, I mention because he is, I can't say this word on the podcast, but he is. But they've also been adopted and whatever. Okay. And if there's a product that's going to make my life easier or anyone I know and it's regard to the pets, I will. It doesn't matter. Let's get it. Let's do it. But knowing that you're not only creating these products, but also the bottom line is being shared with these sanctuaries, like you said, they do so much good work. And there are so many people that are there giving their free time, their free resources for animals that are voiceless, that have no homes, that are being taken in. So anyone who's listening to this and don't follow Waggos, please do. They have the cutest content. I mean, I spent like an hour yesterday just looking at your reels, and they're fantastic.
Amazing.
And this kind of brings me back to something I've been thinking about. Do you have to, so we're always talking about giving back and how events in your life have led you to want to give back. And this might sound a bit harsh, but it might be a real unpopular opinion, but do you have to wait for something that tragic in your life to happen to wake up to this? Like, do you have to wait until something happens, whether it's in your family or to you or someone close to you, for you to be like, no, these things have to change? Or are there steps before that? And this kind of also led you to Jays of Sunshine. But yeah, do you have to wait until something super tragic happens for you to feel like it isn't about me, it's about the whole?
That's actually a really good point, and unfortunately, more often than not, people, including myself, tend to sort of wait for that big event to sort of happen before you realize, and you stop sort of taking things for granted and try act on it, to a certain extent. Where, I mean, the best answer is obviously no.
Yes, but that's not the reality.
You shouldn't have to wait for a big event, to sort of
wake up.
Yeah, to sort of give your helping hand, to give back in any sort of way you can. Realistically, look, it's never easy to put yourself in a situation where you're dealing with people at the end of the day that might be suffering, that might be going through a difficult time. Maybe not everyone can do it, because it's not easy. But if at least I had to speak from experience, there's no sort of greater satisfaction. There's no greater growth as an individual. Something I mentioned earlier on was to be the best person of yourself. If I had to, with all at least my 27 years of life so far, see what was the biggest growth spurt in my life, I'd say it's since the moment I started giving back. Because what you realize when you open your eyes to a world of, tragic things that people go through, and how you can sort of help, even that to the smallest extent, can make a difference sometimes. The satisfaction you get from that, the growth you get as an individual is, that's exactly it. So if I had to look back and sort of say I didn't have this experience that I've been through in life, this event at least that I went through, my sort of recommendation would be, it's never easy. It's never easy to start. Even if you go through an event, it's still not easy to start. I've always had my sort of doubts. Do I actually want to get involved? Because it will bring, certain things up.
Like being in that situation again.
Exactly.
It's not easy.
But there are some great organizations out there, some great charities, where even if you just go and try it out one time, give that one day, that 1 hour even, you'll know if it's for you or not, and a lot of people would love to do it but don't know where to start from. That's often the biggest problem, the biggest barrier, where I'd love to sort of give back, but where do I start from? So it's find something that you really do feel a connection with. Go and volunteer, go and try out, go spend an hour, and more often than not, I'm just giving you experience based on people that have been helping the organizations I'm part of, is that once you do it, once you sort of get a taste of it, as hard as it can be, there have been situations where I've had an event, like with Days of Sunshine, and for the next 2 days I'm just shattered, I'm emotionally drained. Sort of drained, shattered and all. But what you learn, the way you come out of that, and the way you start to see life, it's just so, it's worth it. You know what I mean?
And very quickly, could you just explain to us what Jays of Sunshine does?
Of course. So Jays of Sunshine is a charitable organization that was founded by Angie and Maxine, two great people that also lost their mothers through to cancer, basically. And it's a charitable organization that sort of essentially focus on children battling cancer, okay? And they do this in 2 ways, basically. So they want to make dreams come true for any children that's going through treatment or anything of the sort, and they do this by fulfilling wish lists. So as a child goes in to do their treatment, they ask for a wish list, and whether it's something small like a little gift to even potentially a holiday abroad if they're able to do it, fulfilling these wish lists, that's the aim. And the second part is organizing events. So the community around obviously the Rainbow Ward and all is an extremely strong community. There are a lot of people that have been through it, a lot of people that are going through it. There are some people that have even lost a sort of child, through the process, and are still an extremely strong part of the community.
Wow.
So events is a big thing. We plan events, themed events, whether it's Christmas, Halloween, and all, to sort of just bring the community together and just make a smile come out on a child's face.
You make it sound so like easy, but it's like you said, you've been through it, so it's not easy for you to be in that situation again. Yet you're still in that situation. You're not only in it, but you're helping organize it. And I mean, even if everyone does just 1% of that, it's already enough. And like you said, there are other ways to get involved. Maybe you don't have the time, but like I know with Jays of Sunshine, you can donate. So on their website, it's very easy. There's everything where you can send the money, etc. So even if maybe you're in a period of your life where maybe you can't leave the house or you're too busy with work or whatever, there are still ways that you can get involved.
Yeah. So like you said, it's, again, obviously now coming out of it where to us donations mean everything, the people that have donated, the businesses that have been part of it,
come true.
It's not doable sort of without these people. But yes, if you are an individual and would like to sort of donate, we have a website where you can go donate yourself. Another part is obviously urging any business you're part of or whatever to sort of just be a part of and even come and experience it to a certain extent firsthand where you want, just because it will not only help you perhaps, but people within your business that sort of have, like I said, the same values and would like to sort of help out in any way they can.
Fantastic. And I think it really comes back to, like, I think we very much focus on, like, am I happy? And, like, it's something I've thought about countless times. But I think when you stop focusing on the self and you instead say, okay, instead of saying, am I happy? How can I make other people happy? Or how can I help? Without even noticing, as a proxy, you become happier. So I think maybe this has been something that you have, maybe knowingly or not, maybe this is why you are able to be positive after, losing your mom and kind of not knowing where you stood business-wise and then eventually figuring it out. But maybe because you always directed that attention off you and into other people and organizations, maybe that's been your biggest success so far.
I mean, that's a good way to put it, So it's something I'm figuring out myself, At the end of the day, it's something that every day I try to sort of see how, what else I'm going to
But you're 27 and you're doing all these things. I mean, I'm a few years older than you and I haven't done half of this. So it's really fantastic, honestly.
I appreciate it.
So we're coming to the end of the podcast, and there are a few closing questions I like to ask. Now, for some of these questions, I actually asked a few listeners, and I also asked some of your family members.
Okay.
And so the first one I'm going to ask you is not related to anything we've spoken about, but I think it's just funny. So I've heard that you've broken quite a few bones in your life. I also heard that once you were had hiccups and you fell back and you got a concussion because you hit your head trying to stop these hiccups. So how many bones have you actually broken?
I broke my nose, my knee, my ankle. That's 3.
Okay, that's it?
That's it.
Okay, it's not that bad. And then on a more serious note, what's one thing that you're currently doing that future you is going to thank you for?
I'd say It's a good question.
Can take your
It's a
time.
question that requires thought. No, look, I'd say it's something I really feel that I sort of need and want to prove to myself is that I want to create a brand, I want to create a product, I want to create something that is of real value, you know, in some way or another can help an individual, can help more numerous, multiple individuals, besides individuals, dogs also, you know, so whatever it is, whatever the brand, whatever the company is, I'll be proud of myself if I'm able to sort of build that brand, build that product that people can use, that would make their life better, you know, whether it's for an individual, whether it's for a dog.
Amazing. And last two questions. So I know you've had a girlfriend for a very long time, like 10 years or something crazy like that. And you're 27, so
say
that's...
the years because I'll probably get it wrong.
You're going to get in trouble. So you've had a girlfriend for a very long time. And you said when we had spoken previously that it really kind of helped you, your perspective, stay on the right track and all of that stuff. But I feel like a lot of, well, not I feel like, but maybe young men especially, they kind of say no, like, you know, once I have the business in order and I have a house and then I'll kind of look for someone. But your experience has been quite the opposite. So if you had to speak to someone, like a guy, especially your age, and they are in a different position where maybe they're single or they don't want to settle down or whatever, what would your perspective be on that in the sense of how that has actually been a really strong anchor in your life?
I mean, look, you just said the point itself, you know, an anchor. Like I said, so I've been with Ali now for 9+ years, to be safe. And she's been through a lot, you know, as a lot with me. She's sort of been my backbone, like you said, the anchor itself, which is, I think, it's something that, you know, there are days where sort of you take it for granted, okay, because you have a partner, they need to be with you by your side, you know, when you're going through, when you need help, when you're going, but it's not something that's to be taken for granted. I mean, she's always been there, and I thank her for it. So my advice would be that, let me tell you, there's no rush, obviously, to ever find that individual, that person, you know, the right person will come along. But I don't see sort of business or any excuse to sort of take away from finding that individual, at least from my point of view.
Like
you
you can do it all.
That's it.
Fantastic. Okay, and then the last question, and doesn't need like one-liners or whatever. So what advice would you give somebody who's just about to start a business? And then what would you also tell someone who's maybe recently lost someone in their life?
Okay. So to answer the first question, here I'm going to refer back to something I said in the podcast itself, that if you're starting a business, obviously you have some great idea in mind, you know, that you want to do. You also, as an individual, know what makes you happy. You know what your values are in life. You know the life you want to live. So if you find a way to put the two together, then it's a recipe for something beautiful. You know what I mean? Because you have your passion for making the brand that you're creating yourself come to life, which is also fulfilling your values.
Okay.
So that's the answer to the first question. The second question, read it again for me.
So someone who's recently lost someone that was very close to them, what would your advice be in those initial kind of stages?
So, life, obviously, you can question many things in life, you know. And when an event like that sort of hits you, you start to question everything, you know. You start to question, like I said, you know, why me? Why my family? Why my mother, you know? I mean, she spent a life of giving back and helping others and all. Why did she sort of have to get it, you know? So there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of, you know, you're in a dark space.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And everyone deals with it differently. But I'd say my biggest advice would be surround yourself with people who really care about you. You know, it's, again, I can relate to this occasion where I have a lot of friends, you know, I know a lot of people, but it's when you go through a situation like this, people can't understand what you're going through, and there are always, this is when the true friends stand up, you know, and they're by your side when you're going through such a difficult situation. They're there whenever you need them. They're there no matter what it is, you know. And you really find out who these friends are. You really find out who these supportive people are when you're going through something like this. So again, my advice is surround yourself by people who really do care and love you, and not people that might, for any other reason, be hanging out with you.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I feel like this was a really wide-ranging conversation, but I definitely learned a lot, and I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing and being so open and vulnerable, and really just reminding me and hopefully people listening that you can do good, be good, and still make money and, you know, have a good business. But I guess there's, if you want it, more to life than that. So fantastic. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hope to speak very, very soon.
For sure. Let's hope we get those messages out there.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Mar.